tragic story, the double murder in Noida of a young girl Aarushi and a man Hemraj, is a story that the nation has been watching for the last week.
People often say there is no perfect crime, only an imperfect investigation. That's exactly what we see in the confusing and unsolved Aarushi murder case. In 2008, it was a quiet night in the city of Noida in India. But in one home, something terrible had happened. A teenage girl was found dead in her locked bedroom. Her parents, who were just down the hall, hadn't heard anything the night before and couldn't believe their daughter was gone.
It's a huge void which this lifetime will never be able to fill.
As panic and confusion spread like wildfire, the house got packed with neighbors trying to wrap their heads around the tragedy. With more people coming to the crime scene and touching stuff, the evidence got all messed up. The evidence was messed up by accident, making it hard for the authorities to figure out what happened. What should have been a simple investigation turned into a real mystery, leaving everyone wondering how something so awful could happen in such a peaceful place.
Come on, Aarushi. Sing, yeah?
Aarushi Talwar was born in Delhi, India on May 24, 1994. Her family was well off and money wasn't an issue for them. Her father, Dr. Rajesh Talwar, was a dentist, and her mother, Dr. Nupur Talwar, was also a dentist and a stay-at-home mom. They both practiced medicine together at their clinic in Noida's Sector 27. Rajesh and Nupur also worked at Fortis Hospital. Rajesh was the head of the dental department there and taught at a dental college in Greater Noida. Aarushi was Rajesh and Nupur's only daughter, and before she was born, Rajesh and Nupur had trouble with pregnancies and had tried for nearly 5 years without success. They tried IVF, which is a medical procedure where eggs are fertilized with sperm outside the body, either in a test tube or another method. IVF was a time-consuming and expensive process for them. She was like a miracle to them, and their relationship with Aarushi was great. They acted as both parents and friends, granting her every wish and ensuring she had everything she needed. Rajesh worked very hard, and both parents were so busy with their clinic and teaching that they often returned home late in the evening. Due to their busy schedules, they hired a domestic servant named Hemraj Banjade, who was 45 years old. Hemraj came from Darpani, a village in Nepal, and started working as a servant in Aarushi's home in 2006. Hemraj sent almost all his earnings back home to Nepal, where his wife and children lived. According to reports, he was well received by the Talwar family. Despite being a servant, the Talwars did not mistreat him. Hemraj had his own room in the house, and the Talwars covered all his needs. Hemraj treated Aarushi like his own daughter. Besides Hemraj, there was another helper in the house, Bharati Mandal, who mostly cleaned and dusted. Bharati would start cleaning the house every morning at 6 a.m. Because Bharati had only recently been hired, he didn't have the house keys, so Hemraj would wake up and open the door for him. On May 15th, it was Aarushi's last day at Delhi Public School before the summer vacation, so she was very excited to spend time with her friends during the summer. Her birthday was also coming up in 9 days, so she was also looking forward to that. Aarushi was quite popular in school. She was the typical teenager who was quiet in front of others, but loud in front of her friends. According to her friends, Aarushi didn't pay much attention to her looks before. However, as she was about to turn 40, she started focusing more on her appearance and social status, which is common at that age. Let's look at what happened at the Talwar household on May 15th. Around 6:15 a.m., Bharati arrived and rang the doorbell. Hemraj opened the door as usual. When Rajesh and Nupur woke up, the cleaning was done and breakfast was ready. Nupur and Rajesh headed to their clinic. Aarushi returned from school around 1:30 p.m. Rajesh picked her up and they had lunch at home with Nupur and her sister-in-law, Vandana. After lunch, Aarushi stayed home while Vandana left for work. Nupur returned around 7:30 p.m. and Rajesh returned around 9:30 p.m. with his driver Umesh. When Umesh returned to hand over the car keys to Hemraj, he saw Aarushi and Nupur having dinner and Rajesh coming out of his room. Rajesh ordered a camera as an early birthday gift for Aarushi. After dinner, they gave it to her, took photos, and recorded a few videos. The last photo was taken at 10:10 p.m. Later, Rajesh asked Nupur to turn on the Wi-Fi router, and after that, at around 11 p.m., she checked on Aarushi, who was reading a book. Rajesh was sending emails. His last email was sent at 11:45 p.m. Aarushi typically stayed up until around 1 a.m., texting her friends before sleeping. Around 12:02 a.m. on the night of May 16th, Aarushi's friend Anmol tried calling her on the landline, but she didn't pick up. At 12:30 a.m., Anmol sent Aarushi a text, but she still didn't respond. Anmol thought she might have fallen asleep, but found it odd because she usually stayed up later during the summer holidays. Everything seemed normal until this point at 12:30 a.m. Before moving further, let's look at Aarushi's house. The apartment had 3 bedrooms. One belonged to Rajesh and Nupur, the second to Aarushi, and the third to the house servant, Hemraj. There was only one way to enter, which was protected by 2 metal grills. First, there was the outermost grill, which could be opened by pushing. After that, a middle metal grill usually had a latch on it, but this grill could be locked from the outside. Finally, there was the house door. There was also a door between the 2 metal grills that opened into Hemraj's room. The police found that this door had been closed for a long time and was blocked by furniture in the house. This wasn't the only door at Hemraj's room, and the main door was accessible inside the home. On the morning of May 16, 2008, Bharati rang the bell as usual, but there was no answer. After a few rings, Nupur came out of her room and called for Hemraj, but got no response. Bharati suggested that Hemraj might have gone out and locked the door. Nupur then decided to throw the key down from the balcony so Bharati could catch it and use it to open the door. Nupur tried to call Hemraj, but the call was disconnected. When Rajesh woke up, he noticed an empty Scotch whiskey bottle on the dining table. It was strange because the night before, on May 15th, they had all eaten dinner together and nobody had been drinking. Rajesh usually kept these bottles behind a wooden sliding door in the living room corner. When Rajesh asked who drank the whiskey and left the bottle there, nobody had any idea. Rajesh hurried to check on Aarushi. Aarushi's room had a self-locking door, usually locked from the outside every morning. But today, Rajesh noticed that the door was slightly open, which was unusual. When Rajesh entered Aarushi's room, he saw her body lying on the bed. Her bedsheet and neck stained with blood. Seeing this, Rajesh screamed, and at that precise moment, Nupur also arrived at the scene. Nupur stood silently for a few seconds, shocked. Meanwhile, Bharati had reached the outermost gate of the house and pushed it hard. To her surprise, the gate opened without using the key. As she entered, she noticed that the middle grill was just latched, not locked. As Bharati entered the house, she heard Rajesh and Nupur crying. Bharati started to walk towards Aarushi's room when Nupur took her by the arm and led her into Aarushi's room. Nupur removed the blanket covering Aarushi's body and pointed at Aarushi's neck and said, "Look what Hemraj has done and left." Both Rajesh and Nupur repeatedly blamed Hemraj for Aarushi's murder. Nupur kept saying "Look what Hemraj has done and left." Bharati hurried out to let the neighbors know that someone had killed Aarushi, and she went back to the house to comfort Nupur. They didn't call the police right away. First, they told their friends and family about what had happened in the house. Then, one of the neighbors, who lived below their apartment, told the building watchman to call the police. At that time, a lot of people were present. When news of death spread, neighbors from different buildings started entering the apartment. This caused a lot of people to touch evidence and move things around, leading to confusion and tampering with all the evidence. The police later reported that they tried to collect evidence as soon as they arrived. However, due to the large number of people present, collecting fingerprints or any other evidence was not very useful and almost impossible. The building guard informed the police that no one had entered or exited the building between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. as he was on duty and had not seen anyone come or go during this time. By 8 a.m., the news had spread so widely that the media had arrived. Rajesh, Aarushi's father, was the first to discover her body. He described that Aarushi's neck had been deeply cut and there were some injury marks on the left side of her head, above her eyebrow. Aarushi's body was sent for post-mortem, and the scotch bottle found with fingerprints and bloodstains was sent for examination. The mattress contained only Aarushi's DNA. The police believed that Aarushi's body was deliberately placed to frame someone because nothing was stolen from the house, and the only missing item was Aarushi's phone. Rajesh initially accused Hemraj for his daughter's murder. He repeatedly told the police that they were wasting time at the apartment and insisted that Hemraj had killed his daughter and fled. He urged the police to find Hemraj instead of collecting evidence from the apartment. The cops didn't have any other leads, so they bought into Raj's story at first, concluding that Hemraj escaped after committing the murder. They believed that Hemraj had taken a bottle of whiskey from Raj's wine collection and drank the entire bottle, which caused him to become drunk. He then went to Aarushi's room, where he tried to assault her sexually. When Aarushi resisted, Hemraj used a Nepali kukri to strike her twice on the head and then slit her throat. The house only had 2 kitchen knives, both of which were free of bloodstains or DNA. The police offered a 20,000 rupee reward for anyone who could provide reliable information about Hemraj's location. The police checked if Hemraj had any close friends or relatives in the area. They found out about Jivan. Jivan Sharma, who was Hemraj's nephew, was living nearby. The police questioned Jivan, expressing their frustration and anger. He was beaten and taken to the police station. Jivan repeatedly denied knowing anything about Hemraj. He was told that if Hemraj had gone to Nepal, they would have taken him there to help find him. Meanwhile, they sent parts of Aarushi's body, her pillow, and clothes for analysis. Because things were getting more complicated, Sharma Ji, Rajesh's driver, who was with Rajesh, decided to take the mattress to the roof to get rid of the bad smell. He got permission from a police officer to do it. When they were taking the mattress to the roof, they found that the door was locked, so they went back downstairs. Sharma asked a neighbor if they could place the mattress on the roof, and the neighbor agreed. Around 4 p.m., Sharma and 3 others moved the mattress to the neighbor's building and locked the door after leaving the roof. Later, with the police go-ahead, Nupur and 3 others cleaned the whole house, scrubbing every inch because Rajesh wanted it spotless. This seemed like an attempt to hide or destroy evidence. The post-mortem report of Aarushi revealed some strange details. Up to this point, everyone, including the police, believed that Hemraj had slit Aarushi's throat. But the post-mortem report revealed that Aarushi's death was due to a head injury, which led to a blood clot in her head. And the reports also revealed that there was no sign of sexual assault on Aarushi. A re-examination was requested. When Aarushi's reports were sent for re-examination, they magically disappeared. The police questioned some of Hemraj's friends, but didn't get any information. They were prepared to send a team to Nepal, where Hemraj's family lived, and they also wanted to send Jivan with them. However, The police officer investigating Jivan received a call that changed the entire case narrative. When Sharma, Raj's driver, was carrying Aarushi's mattress to the terrace, a few people from the area followed him. Upon reaching the roof, Sharma noticed bloodstains leading to the door. There were blood marks on the sidebars and even on the top of the stairs. Additionally, there were bloodstains on the handle of the terrace door. When they came down from the roof, someone told the police about the blood marks on the door. However, the police didn't check and only asked if those were fresh blood marks. When people said no, the police assumed that these bloodstains were on the ground from before. The police never went up to check the roof that day and did not collect proper samples from the bloodstains. On the 17th, the day after everything happened, Rajesh and Nupur were not at home. His brother Dinesh and an old friend of theirs, an ex-DSP named KK Gautam, were present checking the entire place. When Gautam arrived, he saw bloodstains on the roof stairs. He asked the inspector present there about the roof, but the police had no answer because no one had gone there. Gautam called the police officer in charge of the case and said you should investigate properly. The police officer mentioned that on the day of the murder. They requested the roof keys from Rajesh. Rajesh agreed to get the keys but never returned after going downstairs. Even more surprising is that the inspector never asked Rajesh where the key was. The Noida police showed extreme negligence, and later in court, the CBI team said that the police had mishandled 90% of the evidence. Gautam called SP Mahesh Mishra and requested that the roof door be opened immediately. Mishra and some officers went there and broke the door. They all went in together and immediately saw bloodstains, and a little further, they found another body. Dinesh was the one asked to identify the body because he was close to the Talwar family. The body had been there for 2 days and was starting to decay, giving off a strong smell. Dinesh told Gautam that it would be tough to identify the body because of the decomposition. Gautam suggested that they ask someone else to identify the body. The police then asked Rajesh to come and identify it. Nupur refused to leave her daughter's ashes in the car and did not go to the building. Rajesh went to the terrace and saw a body lying in a pool of blood. He told the police that he couldn't identify the body because of its condition. Later, Hemraj's friend identified the body as Hemraj. How could someone who had been working in your house for so long now be recognized, even after seeing the body? Rajesh remembered every detail from the last day, including where the bottle found on the table was placed. So why couldn't he remember Hemraj's clothes? If a friend could identify Hemraj, then why couldn't Rajesh, who lived with him daily, identify the body? The roof had blood-stained handprints, later identified as Hemraj's. However, the police mishandled the evidence. The handprints were photographed but not properly collected or analyzed. The Noida police sent the samples to the forensic lab after 17 days, by which time significant degradation had occurred. Hemraj's body was dragged through the building, which indicates that Hemraj was killed inside the Talwar's house. Bloodstains were also found on the stairs, but it's uncertain whether Hemraj was taken up or down. Hemraj didn't have any food in his stomach, only a bit of liquid. He had cooked food for himself, but it was never eaten, which raised more questions. The story went off track from what the media had been saying and what everyone had known. The police were really under pressure to find the killer, and the media wasn't helping at all. Aarushi's parents were also feeling pressure to seek justice for their daughter and clear their names. During that time, many stories were circulating. Evidence indicated that Dr. Rajesh had an extramarital affair, and one story suggested that Rajesh Talwar had killed Aarushi and that Hemraj was killed to prevent any witnesses. Then, it came out after a press conference that Rajesh Talwar had killed both Hemraj and Aarushi.
New twist in the sensational Aarushi murder case, the CBI's closure report has raised doubts on the role of the teenager's father, Rajesh Talwar.
After the press conference, people turned against Rajesh Talwar. He was attacked outside the court, injuring his right eye and fracturing his hand. Despite this, Aarushi's parents remained hopeful for justice and did not take any actions to respond to the event.
What is the, without any evidence, without anything, they come and say such things? Tell me.
You're saying you don't have evidence about it. You say what you wish to say. Say what you wish to say. Use your imagination to the wildest extent possible.
So, there were a bunch of other theories that came up. One theory was that Dr. Rajesh Talwar had an affair with a colleague, and Aarushi knew about it and told Hemraj, which led to a physical relationship. This theory suggested that Aarushi's death was connected to the affair. Another idea is that Rajesh and his wife, Nupur, went to Aarushi's room to turn off the internet and realized the keys to Aarushi's room were missing. This sparked the idea that someone might have used the keys to get into Aarushi's room and harm her. But it's hard to believe that Aarushi wouldn't have heard someone entering her room. The CBI looked into Aarushi's camera, which had deleted photos. They first thought Aarushi might have taken pictures of her last moments, but they didn't find any evidence. They also did tests to see if sounds from a murder could be heard through closed doors with an old air conditioner running. The tests supported the idea that nothing could be heard outside of her room. The investigation then focused on Krishna, a clinic worker who Rajesh had fired before the murders. Krishna took a lie detector test and didn't pass, which raised suspicion. The theory was that Krishna, along with others, might have had a hand in the murders, but there wasn't enough evidence. Other theories suggest that multiple individuals were at the crime scene and had conspired to frame Rajesh Talwar. The investigation uncovered that Hemraj's blood was discovered on a pillow in Krishna's house, along with the recovery of a Nepalese knife. Nevertheless, the evidence was marked by errors in forensic reports and potential tampering. In 2009, a new police team took over the case and dismissed previous theories. They found out that only Aarushi and Hemraj were in the house. Aarushi's phone was missing, and no valuables were stolen. The case got even more complicated as new suspicions emerged about the Talwar family's involvement in efforts to protect Aarushi's reputation. Even after extensive investigations, the case remained unsolved, with various theories and discrepancies. There was no solid proof, physical proof, or any evidence to determine who was responsible for the murder. Polygraph and brain fingerprint tests were conducted, and everything came out clean. Both the husband and wife tested clean in all 6 tests. In the last set of tests, issues related to Rajesh's marriage were found, but they were deemed irrelevant, so they were discarded. Now, the case was brought to court. Rajesh and Nupur Talwar learned in court for the first time that the blood samples found on the pillow in Krishna's room matched Hemraj's DNA. However, these samples were discarded due to labeling errors. 2 years after the murder, the whole life of the Talwar family was turned upside down. They didn't know how to live a normal life anymore, and their last hope was also taken away from them. The family was really frustrated and distraught. The trial for the murder of Aarushi Talwar and Hemraj began in Ghaziabad in 2012. The prosecution aimed to prove that the Talwars were guilty of the murders. They provided evidence that showed the router was turned off at 3:15 a.m. and then turned back on at 6 a.m. The defense argued that a power cut might have caused the Wi-Fi router to turn off and that the old Wi-Fi router might have turned back on by itself. The CBI disproved the power cut argument. The CBI argued that Nupur throwing the keys was just a way to buy time. They claimed that the door could be opened from the inside without the key, so throwing the keys away was unnecessary. The Talwars did not have a counter-argument to this point. The allegations suggested that the murders were committed in a fit of rage, with Dr. Rajesh Talwar supposedly seeing Aarushi and Hemraj together and then killing them in anger. The parents were accused of taking Aarushi and Hemraj's phone from the house and rushing to clean the house to remove evidence. The defense claimed that they had asked a police officer for permission to clean the house, but the officer never confirmed he had given permission when questioned in court. The trial lasted from 2011 to 2013. On November 26, 2013, Aarushi's parents, Rajesh and Nupur Talwar, were sentenced to life imprisonment. 4 years later, on October 12, 2017, They were released from Dasna prison in Ghaziabad, which is located in the outskirts of Delhi. Even after all this time, people still can't agree on whether their story is true or not. The fallout from this case has been really tough for everyone involved. The case, known as the Unsolved Double Murder of 2008, remains unsolved to this day, and no one knows who killed Aarushi Talwar. What are your thoughts on who's behind the Aarushi and Hemraj murders? What could have been the reason for killing a beloved child? If we consider the possibility of the servant's involvement, how do you think they managed to move her in and out of the building? Don't forget to like and subscribe to support us in bringing new crime cases to light.